I wanted to ask you guys if we could put a sock in it, if we could. Just bury this phrase. Bury a word, really. I'd like to bury the word. That's kneecaps. The Manning cast last night, I thought the entire... First of all, I was completely bored by Dan Campbell's appearance on the Manning cast.
This was horrible.
And I think a lot of that was due to the way Peyton and Eli started the introduction of Dan Campbell. This is not year one or the first month after a press conference. I mean, they introduced him as, hey, the guy said kneecaps at a press conference. And, you know, kneecaps this and kneecaps that. Are you biting any kneecaps, Dan? I mean, it's like, dude, enough.
You can tell he's done with it, too.
He's done with it. Can we retire that phrase? I feel at this point, it's just lazy, too. I mean, pay attention. The Lions had one of the greatest turnarounds in the history of the NFL from a team that started 1-6 to a team that finished with 9 wins to go 8-2 after going 1-6. I mean, how about say something about that?
What the way I took the interview, and this is the way Dan Campbell should take it. And I'm actually glad it happened for Dan Campbell. Everybody in Detroit thinks that the Detroit Lions are the nation's new darlings when it comes to the NFL. Everybody thinks the Lions have the best story. Everybody in Detroit, we think that everybody outside Detroit is watching the Detroit Lions, and everybody is riveted by the Detroit Lions, and everybody is like, go Dan Campbell, and go Amon-Ra St. Brown, and the Jamal Williams story, and Naruto, and all that. I'm going to tell you like this. Last night was a reminder that outside of Detroit, the world still does not give a damn about the Detroit Lions. The story was great as it was happening, but they didn't get into the playoff. So everybody doesn't care about how they finished, because you know what the bottom line is? They didn't get in. So guys like Eli's not a host. Eli's not an interviewer. Eli is his goofy self, which I love. I love him dearly. We spent time together when I was in New York. I got him in the club. That's a whole nother story. I love Eli. Eli's not going on there doing research and coming on and giving you a riveting interview. I don't know why I keep using that word riveting, by the way. And then Peyton.
But at least they're entertaining with Deion Sanders.
Well, it's Deion.
Yeah.
And they know Deion. And it's Deion. Like, anybody can be entertaining.
They don't know Dan Campbell.
They don't know
Did
Dan
Eli
Campbell.
play with Dan?
They didn't take the time. He was on the team.
Yeah.
That don't mean you played with him. There's a lot of guys I was on the team with that I don't know. Like, so they didn't take the time to do the homework to really see what's some good questions we can ask Dan Campbell. What does he know? They don't know these things because they don't follow Dan Campbell fully. I'm glad it happened, because that lets you know, Detroit, until you get out here and really win some games, until you win your division, until you get to the playoff, people aren't really fully going to take you serious. And I'm glad the players saw that, because now it's time to get in the gym. Now it's time to get in the lab. Now it's time to realize we got close, but there ain't no awards for getting close. And I'm glad that happened. But to your point, it was horrible. And I wish they would have done a better job. But I also don't place a lot of stake in it, because it's Peyton and Eli. It's not like he was getting interviewed by Louis Riddick or somebody with more cachet.
Yeah, and it wasn't supposed to be, though. It was supposed to be fun. It's not supposed to be
like... They didn't
like
make it fun for you.
Yeah, they didn't make it fun for him.
Yeah.
That's really what it wasn't supposed to be, a serious sit-down interview with Louis Riddick.
Fun.
It was, hey, let's watch the game together and talk about the game and have some fun. I just was totally underwhelmed by it, and I think, Maz, I think the reason it was underwhelming is because Dan Campbell was not himself the minute they introduced him as the guy with kneecaps, bite kneecaps and stuff like that.
I'm with you. I didn't watch it last night because I watched Joe and Troy. I really don't watch the Manning cast. I do watch the stuff that they put on Twitter.
Yeah.
I look at all the audio that they put on there, and they do have a good time. It's fun. How they missed a kick, what Maher missed a kick, and Peyton went crazy. That was funny. Dan Campbell he's got the yips. I saw that, but I can't be the judge of how they handled them. The only thing I saw was how Dan looked, and it just didn't look comfortable to me, and that's all I could take out of it. And they just didn't do him any favors.
Like with the Manning cast, it's funny. Now let's not get as serious. Now with the Manning cast, what I've noticed is the great interviews, or let's not say interviews because you're right, the great co-hosts or the great guest hosts, if you will. The great ones, they're funny on their own, or they don't work. They don't wait for Peyton and Eli to bring them into a situation. Like Marshawn is Marshawn. Like Marshawn Lynch is Marshawn Lynch. Like Deion's Deion. Like Deion's gonna be Deion Sanders. He's gonna be Prime or Coach Prime, whatever he goes by now. He's gonna be Coach Prime. Like that's him. That's what it is. When they don't bring somebody into the fold, they're not fun interviews. And when they don't know how, I'll give you an example. The Rock is one of my favorite people on earth. Like, The Rock can do no wrong in my eyes. The Rock's funny as hell. Like, The Rock was one of the most boring Manning casts that they had. I'm like, how do you screw up The Rock? They don't know what questions to ask. They don't bring him into the fold. And if you're somebody that doesn't feel like doing it, which you clearly could tell The Rock didn't want to, which you could tell Dan Campbell clearly didn't want to, but it's a good publicity for the city, for the Detroit Lions. If you're not bringing somebody into the fold that don't want to be on the show, it ain't gonna be a good interview.
And not only,
maybe that's why the Lions didn't let him go on with McAfee that second time. Maybe he's like, I don't really like doing this stuff. Maybe that's the truth.
Yeah, one of the things about that too, if you noticed and I don't watch the Manning cast either. I only watched because Dan Campbell was on it, so I don't watch it at all.
Yeah.
But you see the clips, you see how fun it can be. So I was like, oh, Dan Campbell, Manning cast should be pretty good. And then again, I think the kneecap thing is completely lazy, and if I never hear kneecaps again, I don't think that would be soon enough. But again, I think, Braylon, you might be onto something, is that people just don't take Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions seriously at all. Yeah. I really don't. I mean, they were making fun of his red nose at Lambeau Field and his press conferences where he says kneecaps, and I don't think they took him seriously. I think they took him as some meathead that got a job and hadn't made the playoffs the last 2 years, but things are on the way up.
That's 100% how they look at it from outside. I've been on that side where it's like, it's still the Cleveland Browns. Like, nobody, you don't take them seriously. So they don't take them seriously, and what they'll do is they'll discredit everything you've done next year. So what's going to happen next year is this year it's a good story. People have already almost forgot about the story, by the way, but it's a good story. You finish the season strong, and you almost made the playoffs. It's a good story. What's going to happen next year in the offseason is the Detroit Lions, yet again, they did not make the playoff. They start off the season 1-6, and if you look at their last 10 games, look at the teams they were beating. They lost to the Carolina Panthers. They lost to Green Bay, who's not the same Green Bay and Lambeau. They beat the Jets. Are we really going to reward them for beating a team that lost 7 of their last 8 games at the end of the season? Like, it's going to be a lot of breaking them down next year. That's why the Lions got to throw the middle finger up now and stay together and get ready. Because all that praise that they receive, it won't be praise in the offseason. It's going to be the tearing down of the praise we gave you. Like, but they lost to Carolina. But they beat the Jets with no quarterback. It's going to be a lot of that. So they got to watch out. They got to watch out for that.
Side note: Deion Sanders was incredibly entertaining. Just as a dichotomy to how Dan Campbell was.
He was asking questions.
Now, Dan Campbell is not Deion Sanders. I understand that. Nobody is. But you want to talk, you can't follow Deion Sanders. If you're going to go on the Manning cast or go on anything else, you cannot follow Deion Sanders, because I'm watching the Manning cast because of the guests. Yeah. Deion Sanders, I'm like, oh my God, this is so great. Yeah. This is hilarious. And then you see Dan Campbell, take your time out there, I guess. Yep. Take your time out. Yeah. I don't know.
Manning Cast might need to hire somebody next year to be a mediator. Like, so if they have cases where, like, guests are quiet or guests don't know how to interact and you don't know how to
get the hook.
Exactly. They got to have guys, and that's their profession, where they put him, it's perfect. You got Eli, you have Peyton, then you have whoever that person is, and then you have the guest. And that person can keep them on pace, so you won't have another Dan Campbell. Because there were times when Deion was asking Eli questions. Right. He was like, oh, okay. Now Peyton, Eli. Now right here on this play, what would you do coming back after the interception? Like, I was like, oh, shoot, this is good.
How great was it, too, when Eli signed, or when Prime signed off? Because he's obviously the coach of Colorado, and Peyton Manning lives in Denver. So Coach
smart man.
Hey Peyton, you see a couple of brothers pull up in your driveway. Let us in. That's me and my son. Let us in, okay, Peyton? We'll be pulling up. Just let us in, okay?
You know what's so funny about that is Prime not joking. Like Prime not joking. Like I've been to Denver. Where that stadium is to where Boulder is, that's like a 25-minute ride. Like it's not that far at all. He's gonna pull up. He's gonna pull up.
I mean, it just doesn't get much better.
Hey, Peyton, it's us.
Don't you want to play for that guy?
Yeah, seriously, I absolutely.